Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and this is my review of KRULL, a movie I've wanted to see for 37 years. But before I start, I need to correct myself. I said that Blade Runner was a flop in my last video. Many people corrected me. It was not a flop. It underperformed. It did solid. I think 40 million off of a 30 million budget. But then it was immediately, people reminded me, on VHS, Betamax, Laserdisc, quite successful. And it's been reissued a million times. They did the director's cut, they did the final cut, so it was profitable. KRULL, however, was not. This was made for 30 million and it made 15 million, and it kind of just disappeared. I remember the movie. I didn't see the movie until yesterday. But I remember when it came out quite well, mainly because of the glaive, the 5-bladed weapon that seems designed specifically to maim and then kill the user. One of the things that cracked me up is like, well, we'll get to that. But I didn't see it. Back in the day, families didn't go to the movies much. I think the average was like 3 times per year. And you know, you wanna save it up. You want to see Indiana Jones. You want to see Top Gun, Ghostbusters. You don't want to waste one of your 3 trips to the movies that year on KRULL. But when it came out on HBO, which we also didn't have, but my friend did, I was always obsessed anytime I went over to my friend's house or a sleepover, check if KRULL, it was always on like the day before or the day after. So I never got to see it. I remember drawing the glaive like a freaking million times for years afterwards, whenever I was doodling, but just never saw it. And it really fell down the memory hole. Even, on like geek sites, like I looked up information, there just isn't. I just watched the 2 most trash YouTube, 9 things about KRULL or whatever. And it was the top searches, and it was just 2 freaking a-holes just reading the Wikipedia, essentially. I was like, I just read the Wikipedia. I know where you're getting this stuff from. You're reading it line for line. YouTubers who simply just read out Wikipedia articles have forgotten the face of their father. I said it. So KRULL is interesting. From the advertising, and especially the weapon. Like, I thought it was going to be some borderline horror movie. Like, that's a really gruesome weapon, the glaive. No, it's basically low budget Lord of the Rings mishmashed with Star Wars. And it's pretty darn cool. So KRULL is not the name of the weapon or the bad guy or the hero. It's simply the name of the planet. Is that really odd to anyone else? It's just the name of the planet? Okay. It's about this very Broadway-looking prince named Colwyn, played by the guy who played Colwyn, and then his whole movie career was destroyed. I guess he ended up on Deep Space Nine. I don't remember that character at all. But Colwyn is basically Prince. He's every prince from every kind of movie of the 80s, and he kind of made me laugh. He's very, very like Broadway looking. He's got like this fluffy hair. He's super skinny, and he always like hops into every scene, like that kind of energetic like Errol Flynn hop, but without like the muscle. So it just looks like some skinny Broadway guy pretending to be, I don't know, Spider-Man or something like that. But he's getting married to Princess, whose personality is that she's a princess, and to the Unite the Kingdoms, and then the Beast and his slayers, which are actually really cool. In the Black Castle, which is like this flying, how they always used to copy the Star Destroyer for like 20 years. That would be the opening shot in every sci-fi. Like, oh, let's show off our models, slowly push it past the camera. So it's a castle, but it's like there's no windows or anything like that. There's this one little bubble like command module, but it goes to different planets. It takes over, but then here's the cool thing: it teleports like to a different continent every 24 hours. So just getting to it, that's one of the major things. You just get to it because everyone's like, oh, it's in, Pakistan. You're in freaking Venezuela. Like, by the time you get there, it's already gone. So that was a cool aspect. So the Beast, who's barely seen, but actually really cool and scary, sends the Slayers against this, and slays basically everyone, kidnaps the princess. He really wanted the princess. I forget why. I mean, she's pretty, but I don't know. Like, you've taken over the whole galaxy. It feels like it's hard to, like, she's got to be pretty compared to, like, all women in the galaxy or universe everywhere. So anyway, then Conwyn, whatever. I just call him Fluffy. He's got like the I don't know why, but I could just sense this guy was gonna go bald like super fast, even though he has his hair. And then I looked him up, and yeah, like 4 years later, he was like completely bald. But he has like this fluffy hair, and he's always smiling all the time. So at first he kind of wants to quit, but then this kind of like wizard type of guy says, "Oh, you must save the kingdom." So he goes and he forms up this band, and that was my favorite part. I always assumed this was just, Fluffy and probably some comedy sidekick, which they do have. But no, it's basically like a Lord of the Rings. He meets up with this band of, I forget everyone's name. It was kind of a bunch of British actors that were very, very obviously way too good to be in this movie. And then I ended up like pausing the movie every 5 minutes just to look up who, Chornwyn, Genwyn, like whatever, these English names. And like all of them had just like chock full illustrious careers on the stage in Britain and constant work, and like they were way too good for this movie, but it was cool. One of the things I also liked is it wasn't this band of like 4 guys. When they start off, it's like, I don't know, like 12 guys. So they're like, most of the movie is all of these shots of like the band of ex-prisoners and Colwyn and his 2, 3, I think he accumulates like, personally he gets, there's a kid, but that kid is like the sidekick of someone else. I would say he has between 2 to 3 sidekicks, and then this other group of prisoners. So there's a whole bunch of cool shots of just like 14 guys on horseback, and you're like, geez, what are the logistics of that? The fight scenes again are kind of cool because just there's so many people in this band. So they go throughout the land, and I I forget a lot of stuff. Like, I forget. Okay, first of all, the glaive. The glaive is barely ever used. There's this weird thing at the beginning where they show that the humans on this planet KRULL can touch fire, put their hands in lava, generate fire from their hands, and then it's never treated as it's like any kind of a big deal. Until the end where Colwyn is like, I'm going to shoot fire out of my hand. Like, why didn't all y'all do that? Why didn't you get the Beast in just this like intersecting field of fire of just hand flame? Like, it's weird. So, it's always on the poster. You always see it, the glaive. He gets the glaive. You're like, oh shit. No training sequence that I remember. And then he just puts it on his belt, and he like never uses it until the end. Very frustrating, but it does kind of build it up that when he uses it, you're like, oh, this is going to be cool. But then like the glaive basically does everything. You just throw it once and it basically does everything. Well, almost everything. It almost kills the Beast, and then he has to use his hand flame powers that, I forget, did they say like he was like a chosen one and he had more hand flame? It sounds like I'm making this part up. It doesn't it? It sounds like you fell asleep, didn't you? And you're just making up a fake ending. No, it's a real ending. So, this movie was, well, go watch those trash videos where they just read off the freaking YouTube. But it was, it was the classic troubled production with a lot of changes, a lot of last minute changes. But it works. Like, it's a lot of fun. I kept kicking myself. Although it wasn't my fault. It's not like I could afford to buy HBO. I mean, HBO back in like the early 80s was like $50 a month. That's really, really expensive. I was like, man, if I would have seen this probably would have been one of my favorite movies. Now, you say, obviously, Star Wars movies, but this one was kind of like, how do I describe it? A lot of like really great exteriors, and then a lot of really cool sets. The Beast it got a little like, metaphysical. When the princess is captured, they show her and she's inside of an eye. And then later she's going through like veins and arteries and coming out on a giant hand and then peeking through the fingers. Like, it felt like, I don't know, like you're seeing some kind of aspect of him from the dimension he's from or something. Like, it was trippy. It was, the word that kept popping into my head throughout was imagination. This is like a real imagination movie. So of course, if I would have seen it, it came out, I was 10. That would have been perfect. I would have freaking loved that movie. Probably even better if I was like 8. So there's all kinds of, I mean, the Slayers, there's all kinds of movies from the 80s where they did like rip-off stormtroopers, in the 90s too. These are like awesome. Like, there's a couple different versions of the Slayer armor. They're all really cool. It actually is like one of those things where they'll show one of them like standing in a swamp and you're like, oh shit, they look really fearsome. They're like pretty solid fighters. They don't, you know, it's a classic stormtrooper thing. You shoot a million times, but like they end by the end of the movie, they've picked off like half of the band of merry men have been basically picked off by rifle fire. These cool blasters. I was confused at the beginning why some people were fighting with swords and other people had blasters, and then I remembered, oh, those are aliens from an advanced, you know, society. Yeah, it was very adventurous and there was a lot of imagination. So in some ways, kind of, you know, one of the things about Star Wars is like it's especially like Empire Strikes Back is it's very well written. So there's a lot of scenes establishing other things and, you know, exposition. Whereas this, like, they don't do stuff like that. Like, all of a sudden, we'll just have a 10-minute sequence in a spider's cave with the ex-wife of one of the wizards. And it's like this, like, little mini stage play. And a better movie wouldn't have been able to do that because they're like, we don't have any setup for this. You know what I mean? Like, it comes out of nowhere like 70 minutes into the movie. So like, kind of like the messiness I loved. A better movie would not have had the best stuff in there. They would have said, that's a cool idea, but it doesn't fit the rest of the movie. Like, that's like another movie. That's one of the things I do in comics is, you know, I have collaborators and sometimes I say, that's a good story. That's a different story. You know, that's not just like a different direction. That's like, you should go tell that story from the beginning. So at the and the beast is like creepy, scary, really freaky. One of the things I loved is at first you just see close-ups like of his eye, or this weird thing where like she's kind of in his body, walking around his. At one point, she's going through like I don't know. I'm not even kidding. At one point, there's like a stylized sphincter that she walks through, and then she's in this like kind of intestines, and then the walls close in. It feels like I'm making this up, right? I'm not. I saw the movie. Do you want my purchase email, you know, from Amazon Prime? I saw it. I did. I'm not making this up. It sounds like I'm making it up. It sounds so fake. That's what I love. Like, it sounds like a fake. It sounds like when your friend used to lie about, oh, I just saw, you know, whatever, the Dark Crystal, and then they didn't. And they're just using stuff from the trailer and then making up their own movie, which I busted a lot of friends on that. No, it's all real. It's real and it's crazy. Very imaginative, very fun. Lots of people you recognize. Robbie Coltrane, Liam Neeson, and then a bunch of other people that aren't like names, but Liam Neeson is huge. He's like a football player. His freaking forearms are massive. I always know him as like the tall, you know, skinny guy, but apparently he had like a beefy phase in the early 80s. Just kind of great. And even the stuff that was like a little wonky, like when I'm describing that she's inside of the beast and he's a giant, you're probably imagining like, you know, like wet, like it's all very obviously formed painted wood for all of this. Like, you can see the seams in the wood. So at some point it almost feels like a play, but it's just so cool to look at. And again, I think if it looked better, it wouldn't have been as interesting. I mean, they got a quicksand. They got a scene with quicksand. Like, come on. If you're 8 or 10, Like that's like the greatest movie ever. One of the things that I actually did a little gasp is, it sounds so stupid, but it's at the end. They're going through the inside of the Black Castle, but now it's not supposed to be like the inside of the Beast. You have to see the movie to understand what I'm talking about. They're going through this curved hallway, and all of a sudden it separates, so there's a seam, and a couple people fall through it, and it's all like in one shot. So they actually moved half of the set, half of the actors, and it was on their face. You could see their face. It was a little, and like they're wearing tights. There's no room for pads or anything like that. So they just kind of fall down. Oh, I forgot. At one point there's a scene where, oh, I almost forgot about the fire mares. At one point they need to get, remember how I said it's like, oh, the castle's in Pakistan and we're in freaking, Venezuela. Well, they have these things called fire mares, which are Clydesdales that can, are basically like the Flash, and they capture them. And there's a whole fun scene of like 12 guys in this kind of, not really a quarry, but kind of looks like a quarry, roping the Clydesdales and then getting pulled around. And then I'm looking and I'm like, that's the lead actor. I can see his face clearly, because it's not one of those things where it's like it looks kind of like him and then it goes past and then they cut to another shot. Like, somebody will do something that's honestly fairly dangerous, with horses. It's a lot of horses in an enclosed area. I mean, fairly enclosed, it's like the size of a parking lot. But it's 12 giant Clydesdales. And I was like, that's actually Liam Neeson, like jumping on to the side of that, giant Clydesdale with no saddle. That's the lead. And the other guy getting pulled on gravel, not even gravel, it's like chunks of a rock. Oh, I forgot. Like I said, this thing is like pure adventure imagination. At one point, it's Colwyn at the beginning. And he's going up this mountain. I think it's filmed in Italy. And all of a sudden, these rocks, it's just like a mini rock avalanche. And it was so freaking cool. It was like one of the most dramatic, because you're like, if any of those rocks hit him, it's, you're dead. So all he can do is just kind of like dodge a couple and duck down. And I don't know, like it was really, really awesome. There's a lot of messy, weird stuff here. The pace is pretty good, except for in the middle. At one point, they go into this giant swamp set, and it just looks so much like a set. And you're just like, and then I was reading, and you're like, oh, they spent all this money on it. I was like, I don't understand why they just didn't do more exterior shooting. They did a lot. It feels like the extra expense of exterior shooting would not be as much as, creating this set the size of a football field with like swamps in it and stuff like that. So anyway, I loved it. You can love it as well. You can also check your phone in the middle when they go to this very obvious set of a swamp. Yeah, it gets a little, but there's still cool moments there. I mean, they got a freaking Cyclops. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's really good. And then I was reading that it's one, I almost don't want to call it a cult hit just because so few people have seen it. But I guess in some pockets of, the UK and Australia, it was like a deal, which means I'm thinking they probably repeated it on some local TV station, a couple times a year for a couple years. That's how you kind of, build a following. I don't remember it popping up anywhere. I don't remember ever seeing it on cable in the 90s or the last 20 years. No, yeah, it almost got memory hold except for the glaive. But anyway, thanks for watching. Go check it out. It's definitely a recommend. And I don't know what I was gonna watch Wonder Woman 84, but like you have to get a membership to HBO Max. I thought I had it already because I had HBO Go. I thought the Go got transferred to the Max, but it didn't. I'll just wait till it comes out on regular streaming where I just pay $20 for it in 29 days. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.